Everything that you've seen on our platform so far, what advice would you give to make us better?
If you can get somebody who's obviously a veteran, but somebody who's actually hiring people out there in the civilian workforce, I think that I haven't seen all your episodes, but if there was somebody who could give us that point of view, hey, what does a veteran, does that stand out as you're screening candidates for this potential position on your team? Is that something that's in your mind when you are advertising an open position, or how do veterans cancel themselves out of the equation, right? Because I know a lot of vets who they don't fully understand the type of job that they're applying for. And the reason why I know is I spend a lot of time mentoring vets, and when they get the feedback that they're not accepted or they're not being offered the job, I said, walk me through the interview, walk me through. So then we'll give you a perfect example, right? So I work in business continuity, and a very close discipline to me is called disaster recovery. Two different disciplines, but when people initially think about disaster recovery, they're thinking about hurricanes and broken houses and going up there and doing debris removal and things like that. That's not what it is. So when people give me that feedback, I'm like, dude, you clearly did not do your homework. Disaster recovery has nothing to do with hurricanes and shit. It has everything to do with cloud environment. If we lose the cloud, how do we rebuild it or redeploy it or establish a new infrastructure within the cloud environment? What does that sequencing look like? It's a 100% a technical thing. And we're not talking about laptops. We're not talking about hardware. We're talking about the actual services and applications you need to be about. But that's an example, and I try to use that as much as possible when I mentor vets to say, when you're applying for a position, like, you fully understand everything that role is asking for in the job description.
Before we start recording, man, hey, honestly, thanks for coming on here, dude. We wouldn't be where we're at unless you came on here and shared your story, and others like you that did the same thing. So thanks, man, for coming in here and hanging out with us, dude, for real.
No, yeah, absolutely, man. Anything I didn't get here by myself, and anything I can say or maybe something I can share that might help somebody else, it's not even a question. I'm glad to be here, and I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Roots Podcast. Welcome. Today we bring you Gayle. He is a Marine Corps veteran. Once a Marine, always a Marine, right? He was able to retire and is now working for Netflix. Not only did he go through the bridge program, but also he was able to fight some great battles. Without further ado, Gayle, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Yogi. Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here.
Thanks for coming on here, man. Hey, before we go all the way into the episode, we like to get your information out there right off the bat. So how can our listeners, how can the tribe get a hold of you, brother?
LinkedIn. That's the only platform I monitor and actively participate in. So anybody can reach out to me. Feel free to add, follow, whatever, ask a question, whatever I can do to help out.
I like that, man.
I'm a witness to that. He is super active, very informative, and always willing to have a conversation with a fellow, either active duty service member going through the transition or a veteran going through anything.
LinkedIn's totally a great place. Everybody that's listening, I highly recommend you get your profile built well before you even get out. Keep it up to date while you're still in. Just update those little things so that way when you get out, you know how to navigate through LinkedIn. So it's never too early to start your LinkedIn profile. Just don't do the premium till you are getting out. So that's my only caveat to that. Hey, brother, what kind of books do you recommend those who are about to go into the transition to start digesting? It doesn't have to be a book. It could be a podcast. It could be a Netflix series, whatever you want, man.
So I thought about this one, and there's no one book that actually comes to mind. Well, there's the book. It's called Power. It looks like God, I thought I had it in this office, but I like the book Power because it talks about a lot of different personalities. It talks a lot about history. It talks a lot about understanding different where are you on the totem pole and how you can leverage your experience and how to not outshine your peers or how to not be a nuisance when you're trying to advocate for your program or for whatever message you're trying to deliver. So that's one that comes to mind right now. As far as transition, I read a lot of different books. That's the Power book. Yep. 48 Laws of Power. That's it. Absolute phenomenal.
This is also on my list to read. Well, listen to, because we all know that Chris digests way more audiobooks than anything else. And it's funny that you mentioned it, because your next five moves by oh man, help me out here. What's your name? Patrick
Patrick Bet
Ben.
David.
So he recommended all of his people on his team to read that book. Super important to know what your competition is thinking and how they can possibly use their power to try to influence you to do things for them. So he recommends everybody on his team to read that book. So that's a solid recommendation, brother.
Now, with that book, everybody that reads that book, right? You got to be very careful. And I say this a lot because this book was actually taken out of all of the jails, all of the mental hospitals, because people would actually use it for nefarious affairs.
Oh,
right? So it can be extremely powerful. It's great at persuasion, and it also allows you to see people from a different perspective, right? Those people that you all for us in the military, right? Those skaters, those great manipulators, those people that always get away with everything. Once you start reading that book, you're gonna see the tactics that they're using, whether they know it or not, and you see them from a total different perspective. I myself lost a lot of respect once I read that book the first time for people that would use those. And I thought I was bad. And I was like, oh man, I just feel bad that this person always gets away with it. And then I read the book and I was like, you're just a manipulator. You're horrible. I love that book.
as far as the other books, it's anything you're curious about, right? If you want to be a project manager, if you want to be an emergency manager, if you want to go be a stock exchange trader or broker, if you want to go into real estate and sell houses, read books about that. Like people who tell their life stories about what their experiences were, those are the kind of books that I read every time I was curious about, hey, I want to go be a real estate agent. I would read that. Like, look, man, that's some really good money, but it's not you call it, it's not constant money, right? Like you might hit a couple big ones and then 2008 happens and you just kind of luck, right?
Well, you know what, the average realtor only sells about 2 homes per year. That's all the money they're making for the year. That's not much money at all.
Here in Cali, they're charging 6% closing costs on $1 million houses, so they're making quite a bit more money out here in Cali. But it's a fair point, right? It's not. So I say that to say, if you're curious about something, read about it and try to inform yourself about if that's something you actually want to do, and then go have a conversation about somebody who's actually doing it real time, so you kind of gauge if that's really, if that's going to fit your personality, your family dynamics, whatever the case may be.
Now, Gail, you were in the Marine Corps for 20 years. What advice would you give yourself if you could go back in time and talk to that teenager who's trying to figure out his life so that he can be successful during his time in the military?
Save your money. I 100%. I got some really nice re-enlistment bonuses for just being a basic ass infantryman. Nothing special about me. They gave me $50,000 to re-enlist one year. They gave me $30,000 to re-enlist a different enlistment. Wife, we went and we partied and we had a great time. I have some amazing stories that I'll probably share outside this setting that we're in right now. But we went and we had a great time. My brother played for Alabama. There was one year I literally flew home for every home game in Alabama to watch him play. So that, I mean, just save your money, right? Or invest it. Because as I'm partying, having a great old time, at the same time, one of these my fellow staff sergeants, he threw all his money in a Sirius XM radio when they merged and went IPO for the stock. He just threw his whole bonus on that, and I was laughing at him. I was like, "Dude, you're an idiot, man. This stock market's like money. That's like crypto or some nonsense. Like that's not even real." Dude, I was so ignorant back in my younger days. I had no idea what any of that stuff was, right? And now here I am trying to like catch up to him. So
Wow, that's
invest your
insane.
money.
Yeah,
I'm
could
sure
you
that blew
imagine if
up.
you would have thrown all that into Bitcoin or something
Dude,
like
and
that?
just
My
I used to crush my
goodness.
Marines because they'd be on their phones and they'd be like mining or whatever the hell they're doing with the Bitcoin stuff, and I was just, you wasting your time, you wasting your money, blah. And I got a damn Lance Corporal driving some fancy ass car. And what happened? He goes, "Oh, that shit you were talking about? Like I just cashed in some Bitcoin and I got me a new car." I was like, "Oh damn, I'm the idiot."
So save your money. And then you transition right at the 20-year mark. When did you make that decision of transitioning and retiring?
I'll be honest with you, man. Had I gotten my way, I'd have done 30 years, right? But I understand that service is not about you as a person, right? It's not an opinion, they're orders, and you have to do what you're told. Long story short, I was 18 years in, just as an infantryman, just running and gunning, just a big ass kid having fun, just running with the dudes, having fun. I got promoted to first sergeant, and they put me into an office. And I told the monitor, the guy who's responsible for where I go in the Marine Corps, he's like, "Hey, I want you to go over here to Winter Warrior Battalion, do your 18 months, and then give me a call." So I did that. I did my 18 months, gave him a call, said, "Hey, Sergeant Major, I'm ready to go back to the fleet, trying to get out here on one of these deployments. There's a lot of things going on out there." And he was just like, "I'm gonna send you over to MLG." I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, time out. I did what you asked me to. I came over here with a warrior. I didn't ask you to do shit. I gave you orders." I said, "Understood. I recognize that, Sergeant Major. I'm just trying to say, I did it. I did it very well. And I think that I've earned my place back amongst in the gun club." And he was like, "No, you're going to the MLG." So that night I came home, had a conversation with the wife. I said, "I'm not playing this game." She's like, "Well, then move." So I said, "Cool." So I dropped my papers, and my sergeant, he's a first sergeant. When you drop your papers, dude, you're the biggest piece of shit on the base, right? Like, you're an EDA and you're dropping papers to get out of the institution. So I had like all these sergeant majors calling me, trying to give me counsel and like do this, yada yada. And I respect them putting that time into me, but I knew where I belonged in life, and if I can't be there, then it's time for me to go. So to your question, that's when I made my decision to leave the Marine Corps. And dude, the jacked up thing is I dropped my papers, and the monitor gave me a call back. And he said, "Hey man, what's it gonna take for you to change your mind?" I said, "No, I'm not playing this game. I've seen this happen way too many times with my seniors. I'm not playing this game." Because here's the deal: even if you would have cut me orders in the infantry that day, as soon as I signed the re-enlistment paperwork, that doesn't mean shit. People's orders get modded all the time. Less than 30 days for leaving the X, and all of a sudden you're going to a different installation somewhere else. So I was like, I'm not playing this game anymore. My son was in third grade. He was already in his third school because we PCS in that amount of time. And I was just like, no, I'm done. So that put me at the 14-month mark because that was the earliest I could drop papers at the time. And so that's when I just committed to being to my transition.
Wow. That's very interesting because most of the time when somebody dangles that carrot in front of us, "Hey, what can I'll do everything to keep you," most of us fall for it. And that's very noble of you being able to realize that that was a tactic to retain you, but it was the wrong tactic. Had it gone and being clear and honest, you would have stayed in,
No, dude.
right? But
And here's the deal: like, it was no family nonsense. It was like, look, I was gone a lot. My wife gets that. I get that. My kids get that. But my wife is like, she could see how passionate and how much I love doing what I was doing. And she's like, "Listen, if you want 30, go do your 30. We'll be right here with you." And I was like, "Fuck yeah. So let's go do this." And then they were like, "No." I was like, "Cool." So that was it.
and so you started at the 14-year mark preparing to get out.
14 months. 14 months.
14 months. Thank you. What advice would you give anyone getting out right now on how early to start and what to do in order to be successful for their transition?
As soon as you make the decision to leave, it has to be an immediate transition, mental mindset transition, right? I understand, like as a first sergeant, it was even more challenging because I have obligations to the team, right? I have staff sergeants that I have to mentor, I have to help, I have to develop, I have to coach. I have young Marines who I need to do whatever. So like the institution's never going to go away. And so I'm not going to lie to you, gentlemen. My last 14 months, I was an absolute bastard of a father and I was an absolute horrible husband because my time, if it wasn't with the Marine Corps, for example, I was working on my master's degree at the same time. I was waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I would do 2 hours of college. I'd go to the gym at 5. I'd get my PT in. I was at my desk at 11. I'm crushing I'm researching. I'm on LinkedIn. This is LinkedIn shit that everybody keeps talking about. I'm like 40-year-old man trying to make friends for the first time, right? Like, "Hi, my name is Gayle. I'm leaving the Marine Corps. And I like to be part of your network." That was me. Dude, you want to talk about a humbling experience? You go from like, being the alpha on top of the mountain to like, "Hi." And it was a huge shift for me. I had to humble myself, and I understood like I didn't want to fail. And so all the weirdness, all the the butterflies on my stomach, all that shit, I just put all that shit on silence, and I did what I had to do. So yeah, I build your network and start having conversations. If you think you want to be a firefighter, go talk to a firefighter. Understand what is that dude or gal's life in that profession, right? How long does it take to be a fire chief? How long does it take to be a battalion chief? do you still want to climb a ladder when you get out of the military? You've been climbing the ladder. I don't give a shit if you get out as a staff sergeant. You climbed 5 ranks to get to where you were. Do you want that same, for example, I applied to the FBI. I went to the FBI's welcome aboard day, something where they show you how to do the push-ups and the sit-ups, and they show you this motivational video. And dude, I had a snapshot. I was just like, oh my God, I'm 19 years old again in the recruiter's office watching the Marines slay the dragon. No, I don't want to do this shit again. I don't want, and then you can put me in Utah. I don't want to live in Utah. No, I'm not doing this. And so that was a very short exploration into the FBI. But I say that to say I went out and I committed this. I wanted to do this. I went until I realized like, I don't want to, this is as far as I want to go with this. And I would change direction. I wanted to work with FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. My master's was in emergency management. That's something I wanted to do, right? So I applied to FEMA. I got a couple of job offers from FEMA, but they wanted me to live in Oakland for $80,000 a year. Bro, as a first sergeant in the Marine Corps, I'm making $120,000 with SoCal, housing allowance and all the other incentive pays we get. So I was like, no, I'm not, I'm not doing that to my family. Like, it's like $6,000 a month in Oakland in a safe neighborhood. No, absolutely not. So I say that to say I had 1,001 ideas and I burnt everyone to the ground to figure out if that's the idea that stuck. And the one that was still standing at the end of the day was business continuity. It made the most sense for my tactical, operational, strategic experience in the Marine Corps. It's the one thing that correlated for me very easily into the civilian workforce because instead of assessing the capabilities and limitations of the enemy, I'm now assessing the capabilities and limitations of teams. Do you have documentation? Do you have redundancies? Do you have things in place to make sure that we don't have any single points of failure? These are all the things that I did in the Marine Corps as an infantryman. So to me, business continuity was the one that made sense. And it pays damn good money. So I was like, cool, I can go do this.
Wow.
And
It's a
go ahead,
lot. I know,
Chris.
Chris. It's a lot.
No, I like that, man, because you really addressed knowing your value. There's a lot of us that get out would hear that $80,000 and then they're like, oh, well, I'm going to get retirement. No, man, you need to look at yourself not getting that retirement, and you should be getting a fair amount of money. Don't settle for that first little carrot that they dangle in front of you. And the biggest thing that I also heard was learn how to sell your abilities to others. It's learning how to really connect with people, because you said networking, you said trying to learn LinkedIn, which was really rough for you because you had to relearn how to sell who you are and why it's important for them to want to network with you. And I get it. A lot of people go through the routine. They just click friend all the way down. But why not just send a message to them too saying, hey, I'm Gayle. I'm a Marine E8 about to get out, and this is some of the things I'm looking at doing. I see that you're in this profession too. What are your thoughts? Ask them a question relating to the job field that they're in. You're more likely to get an answer from them, and they won't think that you're a bot because you ask them specific questions about what they're doing. So, no, I love all that, what you said, man. What did you do after you got out of the military? What was your profession like, and how did you get to that point of finding that profession?
So once I committed to business continuity, I leveraged LinkedIn to build my network, but not just build my network. I want to understand what does it look like through, we just say recruiters, but there's so many different titles for the people who are like, there's talent acquisition, there's HR recruiters, there's all these different things. So I would try to speak to those people to say like, what are the kind of questions from your perspective that you care about during an interview? I would try to understand like, how do I answer the question about diversity, equity, and inclusion? Like, I don't know how to answer that question as a Marine. What does that look like in the civilian workforce? What is conflict resolution? What does mediation look like in the civilian workforce? Like, I don't know. So like, I would have those conversations with those people. Business continuity. I actually did a SkillBridge internship with Netflix, and that's what led to my full-time position here. And when I did the SkillBridge internship, it was as a result of a relationship I built with my boss, Scott Baldwin. And so he was one of my mentors for like 6 months. And then we got to a point to where I was like, hey, I'm looking for, and I told him, it doesn't have to be you. It doesn't have to be Netflix. But if you have anybody in the entertainment sector and the technology sector that is looking for free labor for 12 weeks in business continuity, I'm your dude. It's at no cost to the business. Because dude, like, I don't know if you guys know this, but like, interns out here, they make, these college interns make a lot of money while they're doing these internships. So a free internship to the business is kind of a big deal. Not only that, but you're not just getting somebody with the technical skills, you're getting somebody with the emotional intelligence who has the experience to really add value to whatever that program or project may be. So I sold him on the idea. He adopted me for 12 weeks, but he said, don't ask me for a job. I said, no, I'm not going to ask you a job. Maybe a letter of recommendation. If that's even a thing, I don't know if that's a thing out here. But long story short, I did my internship for 12 weeks. My internship came to an end. We all shook hands. We parted ways. And I went to go work at a bank for 3 days. And it was on day 3 that I got the call to come back as a full-time employee here at Netflix. And I'll explain to you why that happened. During my internship, I was just a really good Lance Corporal. I rose my hand for every single working party. I volunteered for shit I had no reason to be a part of. But I wanted, if nobody sees me, nobody hears me, if I don't add value to anybody, then it's going to be how am I helping my boss advocate for me to be a full-time employee, right? Or how am I helping anybody advocate for me? But I was also curious. So the great thing about the company is that it's freedom of responsibility, and people will always give you time. So from infantry, I initially was queued on security, and I met with some security professionals at the company and had a conversation like, what is it like here? Like, how do you guys deal with this, and how do you guys deal with that? And I got all that exposure, which really helped me. But as the reason why I got the call back is like with all the things that I committed to, all the things I was helping write and publish and help other people accomplish their projects and their milestones for their programs. It was now a collective effort. Everybody's like, oh yeah, we know Gayle, and Gayle would absolutely be a great fit for this position. So they created the position for me, and that's how I got to be business continuity program manager.
You didn't have a position. There was no position advertised.
There was
right?
not.
So you went and you looked for that opportunity. You actively searched for it. Then from there, you knew that there was not going to be an opportunity to stay at, yet you continued and you pushed as hard as you could. You got everyone to meet you and know who you were, right? Also knowing that there was a 99% possibility that you were not going to have a job there anyways. What drove you? Internal motivation pushed you to get there? Just the knowledge? Just the fact?
No, I can't fail, man. I refuse to fail. I have a wife and I got kids, man. I refuse to fail. And it wasn't a show. I don't mean for everything I just said to come out like it was a show. Dude, I've been doing the same thing as a Marine for 20 years. I've always been a good dude, right? I've always been the dude that would just like bring calmness to chaos and like, hey, here's how we should fix this. Here's how we accomplish whatever the objective was to be. That my motivation is, I was so successful as a Marine, the last thing I want to do is fail as a civilian, right? So that was my driving force. Dude, it was fear. You want to know what my motivation was? It was absolute fear. I do not want to lose my wife and kids at the end of my 20-year career. I've been through combat. My wife knew me before, during the war, and after the war. She's seen every version that I can be, and I did not want to fail at the end of such a long career.
I like how you said you defaulted to your inner Lance Corporal. That's how I heard it. Right. So you defaulted and you volunteered for everything. So, Army, you're
specialist,
private first class, corporal. Go back to your junior days and go in that mindset that you are pretty much nothing. You have no relevance. You're literally just another body, another number. And I know we say that jokingly in the military, but rank has its inherent privileges and benefits, and you no longer have any of that. And then the kick it, no one really cares that you're a veteran. Oh, that's cool. You're a veteran. Well, you got some war stories to tell us?
Yeah, no, listen, you're lucky if you end up on a team with other veterans. You're lucky if you end up on a team with or a department that has veterans in it. But the veteran population is so small out here in corporate America that it's pretty rare, right? In government work, yes, you're more likely to run into veterans. In law enforcement, obviously, you're going to run into a lot of different veterans. But corporate America, the population is very small. So you run into a lot of bias, right? And I don't know what people's biases of me. Like, here's some Marine, and I try not to talk about combat. I really do. Because why? Because I don't want them to think that I'm bringing all that baggage with me. Or I don't want them, it's not that I want them to think, I don't want them to have any bias about me before they actually meet me. I want you to meet me as Gayle Anders, right? When I meet you for the first time, I was like, oh, here comes the Marines. I don't know how civilians look at Marines. We're knuckle draggers, we're dry heads. I don't know how they look at us, but The idea is that I just put myself to like be a good dude. And that's why I tell everybody. Everybody's like, oh, how do I? Dude, if you're an asshole, nobody, I don't care. It's perfect example. Do you have any Marines? Oh, that's a stupid question. I've sent a lot of Marines to MARSOC, right? These are dudes who are like 300 PFT, 300 CFT. They run circles around the land nav. They can swim for miles. The most physically adept human beings I've ever seen in my life. And they get sent back to the fleet because they're assholes. Nobody wants to work with you. And operators don't want assholes on their teams. You're not a good dude. And I try to use that analogy to I'm mentoring a lot of veterans. At the end of the day, I can deal with the fact that you don't know how to use Excel, but I need somebody that I can work with. You got to at least be able to write a complete sentence. Like, there are some requirements, of course, right? But I need you to be a good person because business continuity is one of those professions where a lot of our success relies on the relationships we build with our teammates across the enterprise.
What was your transitioning mindset when you were getting out? I heard one item where you're like, I'm not going to fail. What else was there?
I had to learn. It was a steep learning curve for me. Everything here has some type of technology involved in it. Our data is in technology. Made products we deliver to our customers is technology. When you think about continuity of like forces and things like that, it's for me it was very easy to look at humans and say, I need this many number of people to accomplish this task. Here's my go no go criteria for humans. Well, I don't know what that looks like in the cloud environment. So I had to learn. So it was me and YouTube. Again, 3 o'clock in the morning. The great thing is that by the time I started my internship, my master's degree was complete. So I was just waiting for my certificate to show up in the mail. I made sure that I didn't have my benefits before discharge was all wrapped up and complete. My education was done. So while I was an intern, dude, I was 2 years, one mouth, and I was just absorbing as much as I possibly could. And when I just wrote all these things that people used to laugh at me because I still use a pen and paper. People in this type of industry don't use pens and paper. They type everything and it's all electronic, right? But either way, I would like if somebody said an acronym or you guys, I don't take it here. You know what I'm saying? But that's just how that's just, I don't have computers in the field. Whatever. Point is that's just how So I would sit there and I would basically review my notes every day. Hey, look, I don't know what this is. What is an elastic cloud computing? What is an EC2 instance? And so it'd be me and YouTube just like explain this to me at like 3 years old. I wish ChatGPT was alive when I was going through as an intern because it would have helped me and saved me so much time. But mine's
Bro, that ChatGPT is such a getting your resume because ChatGPT will literally you can plug in, copy and paste all your fit reps or evals or whatever you have that says what you did in the military, take your awards, put it all in there. It's going to memorize it. And then you're like, okay, write me a first line supervisor eval or resume. And it's going to be like, bam, be like, oh, I want to be description A. And this is what Last House has. I'm going to take the job description and I'm going to put it in ChatGPT. I'll be like, type me a resume that fits this job description out of everything that I have. And it literally does all the work for you.
I think more now than ever, I've always heard this thing like your net worth, right? Because of all of this AI stuff, your relationships are really going to matter now. You've
I agree.
got to have friends in every place. You've got to have acquaintances everywhere because everything's the algorithm is eliminating you before you even get a chance to do the interview. And I'm not even talking about Netflix. I'm talking about all the careers, all the jobs that I've applied for because it wasn't just Netflix because Netflix changes very, very quickly, right? And it's always a business need. It's nothing personal. We don't need this anymore. We're going to start over here. We're going to do all that. So at very early in my journey here, I was always applying for jobs because I just assumed I was going to get cut at any minute because I just felt imposter syndrome constantly. So I'd always go through interviews. I'd always be going through all this stuff. And I realized very quickly that when I get feedback, I said, how many people that applied for this business continuity job at this different location? It's like I get over 4,000 applications. I'm not. There's no way I can. How do I win? Right? I'm fighting 4,000 people just to be interviewed. So yeah, relationships are absolutely force multipliers out here.
So I want to touch up on that, right? About you were battling 4,000 people and LinkedIn, great place, amazing platform, but you are battling those 10 to 20,000 people that are in that platform against one job, right? So what did you do? And you've talked about it a little bit about your network, but what does networking mean to you? How could you break it down to someone that is part of this? I would say the And one of my guys told me recently, right? I'm part of the iPad community or iPad generation, right? How could you break it down to that generation to where they can understand and make it tangible and real?
I never want our first meeting to be me asking you for something. What I mean by that is if I see Chris on LinkedIn and he's knocking it out of the park and he's doing what I think I want to do, I'm gonna go have a conversation with Chris. I'm gonna find a thread that connects me to Chris. And we're gonna have a conversation. We're gonna build a relationship over a period of time. I don't have to talk to him every day. Hey man, once a month, can we just set up a monthly cadence just to check in with each other and have a conversation? Now, fast forward 2 years from now, Chris is growing his team. He's got an opening that is perfect for my personality and my capabilities. Hey, Chris, I want you to know that I applied for that position. You know what I'm saying? That's what I mean by not showing up and asking for something on the first date. I'm telling you right now, it absolutely infuriates me when people reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'm saying this on your podcast because I don't want people to do this shit. They reach out to me and says, "Hey man, I got a movie pitch idea that I'm trying to send to Netflix, or I got this song I want to get out there on some whatever, or hey, can you review my resume?" I just automatically block them, right? Because dude, you don't even know how to say my name correctly. And you over here just, you know what I'm saying? You're just going to come off the cuff and ask for something? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No. So that's what it means to me for networking, right? Meeting people, maintain more, not just meeting people, but when you find that common thread between another human, finding a way to stay connected once a month, once a year. I don't give a shit what the appropriate cadence is, right? Something that's meaningful because 10 years from now, I might need help with something.
And with LinkedIn, if you keep it professional and you keep a lot of things, right? And if you keep consistent content, right? People will notice you and they will feel like they're a part of your life and your community and your growth, right? Whereas if you just send them, hey, let's connect, and you connect with them, and then 6 months later you're like, hey, Gayle, hey man, can I get a job at Netflix, bro? Can you put a good word in? And you're like, who are you? Am I right?
100%, man. No context on who the individual is. And dude, I don't know I don't know if this is true or not, but I always assume everything's like the mafia, right? If I bring you into the circle and you screw me over and you're just a tool, like that you just ruined my, how do you say it, man? My reputation, right? Like I brought you in. So therefore now I am associated to you regardless of how far or how far you go or whatever the case is, right? So I don't offer that kind of assistance lightly at all.
Like a piggy bank. Have you ever heard of that theory?
What is this one?
All right, man. So you got a piggy bank, and every time you put into a relationship, you put a coin in there. You deposit money into the relationship over and over again. So every time you have a positive thing, that's what adds to it. But every time I ask you for something, I'm taking money out of that piggy bank every time I ask for something. So it's like, hey, man, can you cover that watch for me? A little bit of money comes out of the piggy bank. Hey, bro, I need to borrow your car. A little bit more comes out of there. Hey, man, can I stay at your house tonight? Yeah, nah, man, the piggy bank's depleted. You know what I
100%,
mean?
man. You have to build. I think another thing is social capital, right? Have you built enough social capital to ask for that
Exactly.
favor?
I love Jordan Harbinger. He was one of my, he doesn't know it, but he's been one of my greatest mentors over since 2015, 2014. And one of the things that he always says, dig the well before you get thirsty, right? Most of the, especially when it comes to relationships, people reach out to you when they need something, right? When they're looking for a job, when they're about to transition, they want something from you, but they're not willing to invest into who Gayle is, who Chris is, who anyone is. They just want something from them. And instead of building that relationship that could lead into something else, right? The minute that you don't have an immediate answer for them, they drop you, right? And just like you said, it is kind of like the mafia, right? You are representing my name because people are gonna automatically associate you with me for the rest of their life, right? And if you're good or you're bad, you're also putting a good and or a bad mark on me for the rest of our lives. So you have to be, unfortunately, you do have to be very careful. And with the transition, there's statistics, right? The first year, 50% of service members drop that job in good or bad terms, right? The second year is up to 80 to 90% of those service members that leave the job, right? So are you really willing to put your name and everything in your professional career out there for someone that's gonna possibly saying your name after a year or after 2 years just because you were trying to do them a favor? It's very difficult.
I'm not saying it's that cutthroat out here, but just that's just who I am, right? That's just my. I haven't seen anything bad that way or anything like that, but I just always assume that if this doesn't go right, it's going to absolutely come back on me because I'm the one who created this situation by advocating or supporting somebody.
And you mentioned you reached out to headhunters, recruiters, talent acquisition. Why? I want you to dive that a little bit more into that part. And what was the kind of feedback that you
Bro, I
got?
want to understand the process. I want to understand from start to finish what is Google, what to consider what to consider during salary negotiations with regard to your base salary. And I saw something that said total compensation package. And so I would go talk to a recruiter at a different company or whatever that, just somebody who wasn't involved in that current situation I was talking to that company with. I said, hey, so what is actually meant by total compensation package? And that's where I learned about severance packages, right? So you have your total compensation, which is like base salary, that's your stock options, you have your medical, your dental, life insurance, 401k contributions, you have all these other things. But then she told me about, hey, don't forget, find a friend and ask him about the severance package. And I was like, ooh, what's the severance? Like, what? Please tell me more. What is the severance package? She goes, well, when you get fired as a civilian, if you've been there long enough, they'll give, as long as it's not malicious, obviously, you get a severance package. I was like, so she's like, well, it can be a 1 month salary, it can be 6 months salary. I think from what I read, Elon Musk, he fired like half Twitter, right? And he gave him all like 6 severance packages.
Huge.
So like, you're getting your same amount of pay for 6 months. What are you stressed about, right? If you don't like, then I was like, oh, so if I get fired, like I have a bit of a cushion, right? Just don't do anything malicious. Don't do anything stupid, you know? But yeah, that's why I want to understand the process. For me submitting the application, is it going through a computer tool? Is it going through a human being? The answer is it really depends on the company. Every company does something different. But once it gets like basically what it came down to, if you're getting a phone call for the interview, at the end of the day, they've already found you qualified for the position. Now it's a matter of
Yes.
what value are you going to add to the team? Are you a good dude? What's your personality look like? Are you going to fit within the culture of the company, the culture of that team? Are you going to be the alpha when you're supposed to be the bravo? Or, I don't even know what the opposite of alpha is, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
Omega.
your resume is good, number one. You found qualified. They're interviewing you. So that's why I always want to speak to, like, from perspective, what does it look like on them? And what do they see veterans doing wrong, right? There's a lot of veteran, Argo has a veterans recruiter thing. I think Activision has a veterans recruiting thing. So talking to those individuals and be like, hey, where are the vets screwing up out here, right? And then they'll tell you like, hey, they're coming off the cuff. They're coming in thinking like supposed to get an office. Like, no, dude, you're just an analyst. You don't get your office yet. Thank you, Sergeant Major, for your 30 years of service. You're an analyst now. You know what I'm saying? So it's like understanding that kind of stuff and not making those same mistakes that I see that they were sharing with me that others were making. That's why I wanted to speak to all those different people.
And it's funny, or maybe not funny, but it's concerning that I would say a lot of people don't even know what a recruiter is,
Right.
And what the roles are, right? You didn't have to necessarily go through the process because you found a different you made a path for yourself, right? But everyone, I used to get this all the time, is like, oh well, I'm getting requests from recruiters, so I'll be all right. You're getting requests from a recruiter because a recruiter is trying to find out if you may possibly be a fit for a job. That doesn't mean by any means that you're in the 1% of where that bracket's gonna go, right? And intricacies of just like you said, it's salary negotiation. What is the job that you're actually gonna be doing? What is your growth path, right? What is most people, I would say that 90% of the people that I've talked to, they don't even know that a compensation package is applicable, it exists, or that they can even ask for that. That they think that is just for the executives, right? And another thing you mentioned about Elon Musk and the Twitter whole thing, no one really paid attention to the headline that everybody got a 6 month compensation package, which is huge. It's unheard of for
Yeah.
people that are getting laid off like that, right? The only thing that they heard of was like, oh, Elon fired all the staff. What a horrible guy. No, it wasn't even like that. So I think that you had a lot of experience doing your master's degree and all these things that allow you to have a different perspective into your transition. So it did put you, which is a question that Chris will even ask, is how did you get into the right mindset of transition? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think part of school and part of doing that put you into that transition way before you even transition.
I learned a long time ago, own your decisions. And when I made a decision to leave the institution, I did it. That's me. I'm not going back. I do that for everything I do in life. And sometimes it probably bites me in the ass, but if I make a decision, I own it, man. I'm going to see this to the end. And not very rarely do I ever change my direction once I make a decision. But to that effort, because it's on me, I'm not just like my fire team. I always go back to like Gayle Anders and Fallujah, right? Like I'm letting my dudes down. I'm not letting my wife and my wife and my kids are like that fire team, man. Nobody outside this house is screwing around with my fire team, and I am not going to fail them as their leader. And that's just something I carry heavy on me.
I love how you mentioned how your family is your team, because that's exactly what they are. Everybody has their role in the team, and sometimes there's a different person that's going to take over the team lead on certain things. That's how it is. And it's really refreshing to hear you say that today. And it's also kind of funny because I literally said that to like 3-4 different people today about, it was all on Facebook comments about some posts that I put out there, but they reiterated that it is a team. Your family is a team, and it is super important for you guys to operate that way. What is it that kind of helped you find your purpose after you got out of the military? Because I know, man, you identify probably still as a crown eater. It's okay, brother. I understand, man. Once a crown eater, always a crown eater, right, brother?
Right. You, Chris and Yogi, I knew you guys were going to ask this question, and I knew because I watched a couple of your episodes. I don't know that I have an answer for you, man. Like now, I wake up every single day for my wife and kids, right? Because I feel like an absolute scumbag. And it's not that dude, I've never touched them, I've never hit them, I've never beat them, I've never yelled. It was like a life safety concern, but it was always like because I felt so absent, right? And I feel like that's sometimes that can hurt. Whatever. I know that wasn't the best that I could be. So my purpose right now is to rekindle those relationships, right? I go to basketball with my daughter. I go to have coffee in the morning with my wife. I'm an assistant troop leader in my son's Boy Scout troop. We go camping together. We start fires. We're here cooking steak on grills and stuff. That is my purpose right now, is my family. As far as like, I don't know, man, like there's only one thing that I know where I belong, and I'm not there, right? And to me, I belong in some infantry unit or in some organization somewhere overseas in the country doing bad things to bad people. But that's just not a part of my journey anymore. So for right now, I take all that energy and I put it into my family.
Definitely think that your purpose is, you perfectly explained it, man.
Yeah.
Your family and building up that relationship that you weren't able to build. And I could really relate with that, man, because that's exactly how I feel. And I'm very, very fortunate that I have kids that are in 3rd and 2nd grade, so I get to really be a part of their life. And bro, I relate with the whole entire move in 3 different schools, and the kids are like, "Dad, you're always gone." I come home, it's kind of like I'm a deployment when I'm at home. I feel like it's a lot harder to do the job because when you're away, you don't have, and I hate to say it like this, but you don't have the distractions of home. And really, that's the hardest thing about service, is that you're literally pressing pause on all your relationships. So I think building that relationship with your family, dude, that's a solid purpose.
Now, where does Gayle going from here?
Yeah, I like the ADHD really kicks my ass, man. Because every day I have a different idea, or even in a single day, I might have 1,000 different ideas. Hey, maybe I'll go try out fishing. I'll go buy a boat and I'll just do charters and charge rich people stupid money to, catch fish in the open ocean. Dude, I don't know. I have 1,000 ideas. Right now, though, I think for the short term, want to like craft a business continuity. I want to truly be a master practitioner in this space is my short term. Where that takes me, what titles do I end up with? Dude, I'll be honest with you, like, it doesn't matter. I just want to be having fun. Right now at Netflix, I'm having a blast. I'm having fun. I work with amazing people, smart people, trying to keep up to them. I'm having fun, man. So I just want to master my craft and just be where it takes me from here.
Brother, I love that, man. And it's good that you're having fun. And one of the things that we probably don't realize is whenever we get out, that first job that we get, we're not going to end up staying with it for
Right.
20 years. So take advantage of that first job that you have. And shoot, actually, case in point, because you said you worked at a bank for 3 days. That lasted long. Congratulations.
And dude, so check this out, right? So I knew I was gonna have a hard time because my boss at that time was like, "Oh, I've been with the company for 16 years." I was like, "Oh my god, I haven't had a boss for more than 18 months for 20 years, right?" Because every 18 months you're changing a boss. Not only are you changing a boss, so like, hey, we were amphibious, whatever. Last year we're gonna be the heliborne unit. We're gonna be the whatever unit, into truck company or whatever the case was. So you're constantly changing mission, you're constantly changing purpose, or whatever the case is. And then I was like, every time I would like give dude an idea, he's like, "Yeah, no, that's not how we do things here. We've always done it that way." And I'm just like, "No, there's a better way of doing this." But yeah,
Well, Gil, thank you so much for joining us today. By no means are we done with you. You're still gonna come and talk about your time in the Warrior Battalion and what advice you have for people that are going there, because you turned that place around. You had made a lot of decisions that have made this unit here in Camp Pendleton what it is now, and it is amazing. For one that is going to a med board, my personal perspective from everything that I've experienced is Camp Pendleton is the pinnacle of what any Wounded Warrior Battalion, any board unit, anyone that's on LIMDU should be modeling that program with. Not only is it effective in the medical claim, but it also takes care of the member, right? It also gives guidance, and it also allows you for a safe place to have that transition to be able to move forward with your life. So you're still coming for that. We'll bring you over and we'll dissect that monkey, because it's a huge animal, right? But you're always welcome here. And another thing that Gayle was very gracious in sharing is about bringing that job transition experience and bringing that information on how we can improve and how we can help you, the service member, or even if you're still haven't joined the military and you're thinking about it, how to prepare yourself through that transition into the military, to prepare yourself for that time in the military and for getting out the right way. So again, thank you, brother. Thank you for joining us, and it's been an absolute pleasure.
thank you, Yogi. I appreciate it, man.
Thanks for coming on here, man, and hanging out with us and sharing your knowledge with the Mil2Vet tribe. We really do appreciate it, brother. Hey, everybody that's out there listening to this episode, I want you guys to stop what you're doing, going on to LinkedIn, and ask Gayle for a favor.
Hey, Gayle, can I come and move into your
I know
house?
you only get to send one request because you're gonna get blocked.
Gayle's like, did he just say that?
Hey, maybe I'll be an influencer and then LinkedIn will start paying me.
Exactly. There you go.
There you go. Hey, but for real, everybody, go on there, connect with Gayle. Remember that you are not by yourself in your transition. We have all gone through our own transition on this show, and this is a great resource that you could probably share with other people. We talked about Skill Bridge. We talked about how you could really leverage LinkedIn. Share this with veterans that have already gotten out. Share this with the service members that are transitioning right now that need to hear this message. So everybody that's listening, it's not all rainbows and unicorns out there. It's your transition. Take charge of it. Mil2Vet out.